close to Spacewar, and it. So anyway, I wasn't impressed with it, but I always appreciated the fact that Nolan gave us a heads up, and I've always later come to appreciate that. And I used to, in my own mind, characterize Nolan as someone who really, whatever the stage of technology was, wherever it was, he knew how to take that and use it to make something that would cause people to put quarters in the slot. I don't know if that's really an accurate statement of his skills, because other people became involved in everything. But that was always in my mind. I credited him for that, for being able to do that. Oh, one last thing. When Hugh and I started out on this, we knew what the cost for the first machine would end up close to $20,000, because all of the major components, you could just see what they were in the price list. And it was our intent to use this first machine to gauge the market response, and based on that, then we would know how much money we could make with a Spacewar machine, and we'd work backwards from that to figure out how much we'd have to drive the cost down to be profitable. That was our discussion at the point that we started to go ahead with this. A little bit later, we forgot the master plan.
That was in the interest of getting something to work?
It was later, so we'll get to that point. But getting to September '71 and installing that Trestor, I guess probably in August I went over and started talking to the person that was running Trestor then, and it was somebody starred, Jordan, I want to say Jordan started, that was like the early president or something, but somebody, maybe David Starr, anyway, whoever it was. And the deal I worked with him was, the normal deal for pinball machines in a place was 50-50 split. But he was receptive to the fact that we had spent so much money in building this machine. So the deal I worked with him was that we got 75%, they got 25%. The first machine, there wasn't room in the cabinet for the PDP-11, so there was a display that was mounted vertical, a mirror at 45 degrees, and then the two joysticks. And there was a cable that ran out the back that was 100 feet long. And the computer was somewhere back there. And originally, on the second floor of Trestor, Trestor used to have a music room upstairs, actually a series of rooms. And you could go into the front desk, and they had a whole series of records. And they would put the record on a turntable, and you could go into one of the listening rooms and listen to music. And so one of those rooms was dedicated to Galaxy Game. And so it went in the corner. The cable ran up and went through the ceiling. And there was somewhere up there in the back offices, there was a pull-down ladder so you could get up into the attic. And so the computer was left up in the attic, someplace up above, and the cable went down and ran the machine.
That must have made servicing a little hard.
No, it was, well, actually it was, but where Hugh and I were living, we were with, I think, two other guys. We were living, the four of us were living in a place in Palo Alto near the intersection of Bryant Street and Embarcadero, about a block and a half north. And we called it the penthouse that we were living in. It was an attic on this building that had 7 apartments down below, and then the attic was the whole top floor. And a number of Stanford students had been living there for probably 20 years, and when I moved in there, I kind of, as other people moved out, I kind of picked up the rent and ended up pretty much being my place.
So
But-
you're saying it was in a home-like installation?
Yes. But in getting all of this stuff, and the machines were built up there. And so all of the components had to go up and down the 2 flights of stairs. And the PDP-11 was about 100 pounds, and I carried that up and down the stairs many times. Plus the displays and everything else, the cabinets, and Hugh helped me wrestle all this stuff up and down. So by comparison, having to go up the ladder at Tresser, I never noticed that. That was nothing.
So it worked.
So when we installed the first machine and the response was overwhelming enthusiasm. We had students packed around the machine, 30, and it's not easy to see, and some of them were standing on chairs trying to look down. And the coin box was way too small.
What a great mistake.
Now, I've heard Nolan say the same thing about the first video games that they put up. The coin box was way too small. For Pong.
Yes.
For Pong, yes. For the computer space that he built, they sold about 1,000 machines. The operators, very few of the operators that bought them got their money back. They really did have a poor play, but it got Nolan into the business, and his next game is Pong. It's the one that really, of course, caught on. But our machine had a very enthusiastic response. We also had reliability problems. Joysticks were not reliable enough, and coin acceptors also gave us problems. In addition to the coin box not being big enough, we used a cheap model. I don't know why, but we had problems with the coin acceptors. I had to do a lot of service calls over there continually. But based on that enthusiastic response that we got, that's kind of was unfortunate we got such a good response, because it made Hugh and I forget our master plan. And
So you were sitting there collecting money and doing occasional service calls, or frequent service calls.
it might have been frequent.
So then what did you do?
So it was time to rise above the small little problems we were having, and it was
Think big.
time to think big. So we started talking about, now we did know that the machine was costing too much. And the thought was, well, we'll build version 2, and we will build a more sophisticated display processor that is capable of driving 4 displays in parallel. And we can then spread the cost of the CPU across 4 consoles. That was nowhere near good enough to be able to still make this be a profitable machine. And we should have known that I'm sure we did know that, but for some reason maybe our enthusiasm was carrying us forward, and we marched on. And Hugh, if you want to amplify on that, feel free to.
It reminds me of all these restaurants where the people, they get so enthralled with what they've done, they forget about the money aspect of it.
I don't know if that was our joint enthusiasm carried us forward, or whether I kind of steamrolled the process forward. I'm not and we've never had this discussion, by the way.